All right, let me go right to the phone lines because my next guest, as I told you, she is Cheryl Chumley. She is a Washington Times reporter and a Bob Novak Fellow, and she's a professional journalist. She has more than 15 years of experience covering a wide range, a plethora of topics, from politics and presidential elections to small-town courts and cops and county governments. She's written from various major government newspapers, internet news sites, and think tanks. And she's considered an expert in the area of private property rights. And she is noted widely for her aggressive use of the Freedom of Information Act in her reporting research. And she has just written a book that is already becoming a blockbuster, popular book. It's called Police State USA, How Orwell's Nightmare is Becoming Our Reality. Cheryl, welcome to Freedom Friday.
Oh, thank you so much, Carl. I'm happy to be here.
Well, it's great to have you, and I have been excited ever since I was able to book you because I have read almost all of your book now, and you and I were talking about that off air. There are 3 or 4 chapters. I mean, I like all that I've read so far, but there are 3 or 4 chapters that just really grabbed me because when I read them, I said, yes, I pumped my fist in the air, and I said, somebody else sees what I see, and this woman has credentials. I mean, people can call me an idiot if they want, but you can't call Cheryl Chumley an idiot and not factually. And so, and you said it much more eloquently than I would say it or could say it or have said it, but you said the same things I've been saying. And man, I've been called a racist and a domestic terrorist and a bigot. And have you been called names yet for some of the things you've said in your book?
Not in my book, but in my articles. So,
yeah.
I've been there too.
Well, get ready
Yes.
because your book hits people between the eyes. It's good. It's so well documented as well. Well, listen, let's just begin. Let me ask you, so what's the overarching theme? What's the central focus? What's the foundational plank of your book? Let's start there. Then I want to get into some details.
Was the main premise that I wanted to get across, and this isn't beaten over the head or anything in the book, but the underlying theme is that we as a nation were founded on principles that our rights come from God, not government.
Yeah.
We're rapidly losing that ideal, and we need to hurry and get it back, because once that's gone, it's going to be very difficult to return to a constitutional republic.
Yeah, absolutely right. And do you think not only are we losing it, but do you well, I know what you believe, but I'm going to ask it. This is kind of rhetorical for you. But not only are we losing it, but do you believe it's being taken from us?
Definitely.
Yeah.
We're ceding our rights at a rapid rate, but the government is just reaching in and grabbing as much as it can. And I think people are aware of this, but I honestly believe that most Americans who are aware of this encroachments going on, they're so overwhelmed by everything, they don't know which battle to fight first.
Yeah, which is a psychological manipulation ploy. Overwhelm the enemy, and sadly, there are large sectors of our government that views we, the people, as the enemy in one way or another. But you overwhelm the enemy on many different fronts until the enemy doesn't really know where to do, and before long, it's paralysis by analysis.
What a great way to put it. And under this current administration, it's just how overwhelming has it become. You have our leaders of our nation just on a weekly basis, new scandals and corruptions arising, nobody held accountable, and meanwhile people are struggling to put food on the table still in this lagging economy. There's just so much going on, not just with the federal government, but at state and local levels too.
Yeah. Chapter 14. The title is The Baffling White House Embrace of Radical Islam, or Islamism. Islamism is how you say it. I'm sorry. Radical Islam. Islamism. Why couldn't you have just said radical Islam? Anyway, but that's it. The baffling. And it does. And you really lean heavy on this infatuation with the Muslim Brotherhood. And well, it goes all the way back to the Clintons, as you note in this chapter. But tell us what you know about that. I mean, because it baffles people. And way back when Michelle Bachmann, and way before this, I was talking about it, but when Michelle Bachmann and 4 other congressmen sitting on this committee, this intelligence committee, transmitted a report to the White House and to top administration officials, they basically just asked the question, hey, what's going on with the Muslim Brotherhood being entrenched in our government? And she was slapped down that day by Marco Rubio, John McCain, and John Boehner. And I knew then we were in trouble.
Well, I remember that. Michelle Bachmann did try to bring this issue to the forefront. Congressman Louis Gohmert is another. There's a couple on Capitol Hill who have tried to bring up the truth about the Muslim Brotherhood, and I don't know why we welcome as a nation this radical segment of Muslim society. It was founded back in 1928 with a whole mission, Islam is the solution. That was their mantra. Right. And they basically took that, and their goal is to spread Sharia law throughout the world. That's their goal. And yet this White House, if you look at our dealings in Egypt and so forth, we embraced the Muslim Brotherhood candidate, Morsi, and we basically provided aid and assistance to him as he rose into power. And even when he basically Morsi came out after he was elected president, and he took over the court system, and he very nearly declared a dictatorship in his nation, our White House was strangely silent.
Yeah.
So the entire embrace that President Obama and this current administration do to the Muslim Brotherhood and refuse to recognize the truth about this radical, violent society, it's very dangerous to America's security.
Yeah, absolutely. And listen, you begin the chapter with these words. As a matter of fact, you reiterate those words and your premise throughout this chapter. And I love the way you begin the chapter. You begin the chapter like this. There's regular American logic. There's inside the Beltway career politician logic. And then there's American overseas policy logic. And when the three clash, as they did in 2013 over U.S. policy in Egypt, chaos results. Explain to our audience what you mean by regular American logic, inside the Beltway logic, and American overseas logic.
Well, I think most Americans, when they realize the truths about the Muslim Brotherhood, and there have been reports, and people are aware that this is more a terrorist organization, declared a terrorist group by Egypt, I think most Americans are aware of the truth about this group, and so logically they see them as an enemy, which is how it should be. This is logical. It's based on the facts about the group, what they stand for, what they've done, and what they aim to do. And then you have the inside Beltway type logic where you have lawmakers on Capitol Hill clashing. You have some that want to counter the Muslim Brotherhood and keep America's aid and assistance, distant from that group, and you have others that, as Michelle Bachmann herself knows, if you try and speak up about it, they're declared, conspiracy theorists, and they're just shot down. So it's odd how lawmakers can't reach consensus on that, even though they have more inside facts than the average American does, because they have intelligence reports that we don't have access to.
Right.
And the third type of logic is you have this White House policy that is just, it's all over the board. It's not just in Egypt with the Muslim Brotherhood. Their foreign policy is a mess, whatever nation you point to, whether it's China or negotiations with Iran, letting Russia take the lead on the international stage. It's just a waffling policy, but I just don't understand why the Muslim Brotherhood is given a free pass and groups like Al-Qaeda are targeted as terrorists.
Right. No, well... I agree, and a lot of people are scratching their heads in wonderment. I think I'm beginning to understand more and more about it as time goes on and the more research I do. But you're right. Overall, we're in a mess. Hey, listen, go ahead. Mallory Cheryl said that she would like to talk to him, so go ahead and tell him to hang on, and we'll put him on. Because on the line is Larry Pinkney, and he listens to our show quite often. Larry's been a guest on my show. Larry is an original Black Panther. You will remember that. Out of California from back in the 60s, did time in prison for his views, and he's been listening to the show today, and he's going wild over this, Cheryl. I mean, he absolutely, okay, thanks, Mallory. I'm speaking to Mallory, too. She's giving me some directions, but he absolutely loves this topic. So anyway, Larry, you're on now. Thank you for listening to Freedom Friday today. Thanks for calling in, and Cheryl's here, and she's anxiously awaiting your question. Go ahead, Larry.
Well, my question is actually more of a statement. First of all, Carl, I want to say, as you know, my brother, I love you, and you stay strong and keep doing what you are doing. Cheryl, it is so wonderful. I know that it is hard. I know that it is difficult, and I know that it is dangerous for you to put forth the information to the American people that you are doing. But, sister, please keep on doing that. It is a police state. Not only is it a physical police state, but perhaps more insidiously, it is a psychological police state. I just want to call you, let you know that I am deeply, deeply honored that Carl has you on, that you are speaking. I want to get your book as soon as I possibly can. I want to read it. But thank you,
Thanks, Larry.
Thank you, and stay strong.
Thank you, Larry.
So much.
Thank you, Larry. God bless you. Well, see, you've got, coming on Freedom Friday, I mean, Larry's all the way in the Northeast. We've got listeners from all over. But what an endorsement.
Are all your callers that nice? Thank you so much, Larry. That was amazing. Thank you.
I do have an amazing audience, and almost all of them are that nice. Oh my God. Well, but now listen, Larry when he speaks, he's a man of many and educated words. But if something doesn't fire him up, he's a man of few words. So that was a tremendous compliment, and Larry's listening. So I think that's awesome.
I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
That just made my day. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Cheryl, back to your book. So you've got another chapter entitled Political Correctness is Killing Us. Wow. I've been screaming that for years. Tell us what that chapter's about and what you mean by that title.
Well, just in short, to put it bluntly, it's not the Christian religion. It's not the Judeo-Christian principle that is killing Americans, that is waging terrorist attacks around the world.
Thank you.
There's one source of that, and it's radical Islam. And the fact that we cannot say that in this nation without fielding fire, not just from special interest groups that hope to skew the truth on that, but also from our own politicians who are supposed to represent us, take an oath to the Constitution to defend the nation and represent our interests. The fact that we can't say that truthfully and boldly, that's a sad state of security in America. If you can't name the enemy, you can't fight the enemy.
Yep, very well said. And as a matter of fact, right in the middle of that chapter, you have a statement about General Martin Dempsey, who was the chairman or is the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, when he ordered the U.S. military to go through all of its training courses about radical Islam and make sure that nothing was in those courses that could be perceived as anti-Muslim. I mean, tell us about that. That's amazing. A lot of people don't know that.
Well, yeah, the federal government, our own military, is trying to weed out the notion that radical Islam is an enemy, is a target, or should be targeted by the U.S. military. It's just it's a brainwash of what the truth is. And you would think that the military, of all people, would be aware of the enemy, but they're not allowed to speak about it openly. And most people will remember the shooting, the Major Nadel Hassan, who went on the jihad type rampage on Walt what base was he on? He went on that rampage and killed U.S. citizens and so forth. And when he was brought up on charges, you couldn't even name terrorism as a charge for him. And so he was brought up on charges of workplace violence, even though there were witnesses that said they heard him saying Allahu Akbar, and there were emails where he was in correspondence with radical Muslims to talk about his intended terrorist attack. So these are real disses to American people and to those who fight for our nation. Right.
You're absolutely right. He was a psychiatrist at Fort Hood.
Fort Hood, that was it.
Yeah. And no, I appreciate your analysis of that. And one of my favorite chapters in your book is entitled "Training the Next Generation That the Government is God." Tell us your premise behind that. It was amazingly written chapter. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Oh, well, thank you. Well, that's basically the common sense outcome. That's what's happening when you have a government that encroaches at all levels, and you have schools as part of that government. Then your kids going through the public school system are not learning, the constitutional founding basis of our society. They're learning all the great things that government does, and perhaps the biggest example we have of what's going on in the schools now to train that, to ingrain our kids' minds with that, is First Lady Michelle Obama's healthy eating program, where she basically comes in, usurps parents' rights, and tells parents and schools what children should be eating. I have case examples in my book of where kids bring in bagged lunches packed by their mom, only to have them torn away by the cafeteria police because of Michelle Obama's policy, who, and this just rubs me even more raw, she's not even a duly elected official. She's not an elected representative.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, it's an amazing book, Cheryl, and I can't wait to finish it. I'm very, very close to having it completed, and it will be in my library. I will refer to it over and over, and your references. You are an award-winning journalist. I have a feeling this is going to be an award-winning book in so many ways. Thank you for being on Freedom Friday today.